I will tell you my philosophy of the arts, not in the sense of expounding a purpose for you to adopt, but more contemplations for you to consider. First, I believe deeply in poetry. It's simple enough to comprehend when you look at poetry as, in some ways, the stunted sister of the arts in terms of the recognition it receives. And yet, in the other arts, it's an enhancing characteristic of what we appreciate. One of my teachers emphasized trying to find the voice in a poem, whether it was your own or written by someone else, as part of the deep feeling of appreciation and engagement with the poem. When it comes to writing poetry, my compositional skills may be a little bit limited. I understand many aspects of English grammar. I know how commas are used and parentheses. I've learned those things over a lifetime of consideration and instruction and correction. Somewhat to the marginalization of my condition as a recognized poet. And I am on the margins a recognized poet. I've been printed in newspapers and coupon books and so on. Is my belief in Mother Goose, Dutch Master cigar boxes, the trophy of recognizable ideas that spring readily to mind after gestating as wallflowers in the background of the imagination. My first book of poetry was written after an emergency room ordeal concerning my heart. I gathered up the garden of wallflowers and began the flower arrangement that became the poetry book. And luckily, they were memorable poems because I lost all of my life's work and was homeless for a long time. So I had to reconstruct the book from memory when I arrived in Seattle. People don't usually thrill to the recognition of a poem the way they do a painting. Painting is a problem child for me because it's a secondary art. And I picked up on techniques by being acquainted with other painters. I'd like to have the desire to paint first and engage in the study of preparation, the arrangement of light that is emotive on the canvas, the contours and the brush strokes that give rise to and yield recognition of what it is I'm painting. I don't often render in craftsmanship with a preconceived idea of what I'm going to paint. That doesn't mean I never do. I have drawn from still life and so on as a point of departure for understanding visual symmetry between the world around me and the surface of the canvas. I've tried to grasp aspects of line that you find in Cubism, flesh tones, lifelike figures through gesture drawings, and studied the concentration of other artists, watched how they focus and what they focus on as they draw, watched them take a deep breath, hesitate, and begin again, like the oceans and the tides described by Matthew Arnold in Dover Beach. Among sports, I consider baseball to be a graceful sport, and I'm inspired by figure skating, as is well known. In music, I looked for some understanding of how to connect to the rarefied, is a word that comes to mind, environment that goes on inside the soul when contemplating music that one has loved enough to deeply appreciate and resonate. I found that this conversation between the art and the artist, the music and the musician, became most manageable with the insight of learning to, what was most helpful, I should say, is the understanding that before you teach your instrument to sing, you should teach it to talk. You should establish the synapses between the fingertips and the instrument that are rooted in the vocal cords. And that made a great deal of difference in my ability to express myself in music, so that my last tape, which was made after I was completely deaf, is probably my most enduring recital. When it comes to politics, the art of the impossible, I see us as veering wildly back and forth like a ship in a storm between the sustainability of the scam of $1 trillion war machine and the sustainability of our civilizations in a global environment that is healthy and enduring. And we need to lean to, in the sense that John Lewis described walking with the wind in his shanty besieged by a tornado. A corner of the room would begin prying up from the floor, and the children would run to stand in that corner. And so another corner began prying up, and they would run to stand there. We need to become effective and take pride in our understanding of migration and become problem solvers in our responses to change.